Okay, real short version.
Do it! Well, I hear that train a-comin', it's a-rollin' round the bend. I ain't seen the sunshine since I don't know when. 'Cause I'm stuck in Folsom Prison, and time keeps dragging on. But that train keeps on a-rollin', all down to San Antonio. When I was just a baby, my mama told me, son, always be a good boy, don't you ever play with guns. Well, I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die. When I hear that whistle blowing, I hang my head and cry. Come on, get a rhythm. Oh, when you get the blues, get a rock and roll feeling in your bones. That won't you do when you get it on, get a rhythm. Oh, when you get the blues. A little shoeshine boy never gets low down, but he's got the dirtiest job in town. Bending low at the people's feet on a windy corner of a dirty street. When I asked you while I shine my shoes how to keep from getting the blues, grinned as he raised his little head, he felt the shoeshine ringing. Then he said, get a rhythm. Oh, when you get the blues, come on, get a rhythm. Oh, when you get the blues, it only costs a dime, just a nickel a shoe. It does $1 million worth of good for you. Get a rhythm. Oh, when you get the blues, sue it. If that railroad train was mine, I know I would move a little farther down the line. Far from Folsom Prison, that's where I wanna stay. And let that lonesome whistle blow all my cares away.
Sound. We had a great time here at Lunchtime Live. We'd like to thank Park Bank for sponsoring us, and especially being the overall sponsor for the series. It continues Tuesdays right here on the foot of the Capitol. Woo! See you again real soon.
Thank you. Woo! Woo!
We've got a good treat for you guys today. Percussion ensemble recital, a concert. As you can see, we've got lots of stuff, so we'll have to move stuff in between. This is an actual class that occurs during the school day. are 22 students in this class, and we sort of separate them into different groupings, and they work on music all the way from all of them, which we don't have one up for you today from that, all the way to like 10 or 11 people, 14 people, down to even one person solos. We're going to start off today right away here with DJ Steinberg playing his solo, which is called Yellow After the Rain. DJ. All right, the next thing that we have for you is a marimba duet. It's called Swingers, and it is Amber Cody and Jalen Wilson. Okay, so one of the things about this class is we try to make the students as autonomous as possible. So you're not going to see me conducting anything, even the large groups. We want them to be communicating with each other as they play, so that they are directing, they're making the decisions, they're working together throughout. So this is one of our first larger group ensembles for today, and it's called Flat Baroque.
we have to study it for.
Good evening, everyone. It is Monday, August 10th, 2015 at 5 p.m. It's a meeting of the Oregon Village Board, which I'd like to call to order and request roll call, please.
Boudreaux,
Here.
Grenier,
Here.
Poole,
Here.
Bollig,
Here.
Staton,
Here.
Brethauer,
Here.
Carpenter,
Here.
Thank you. Item 3 is approval of minutes. There are none before us tonight. Item 4 is public appearances, and the item listed there is Lee DeGroot, Accurate Appraisal LLC, regarding letter relinquish of certification and possible board action. So if you'd like to come to the microphone, please, Lee, and we will entertain what you have to say. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me here. I appreciate it. This started back in 2012. We took over in the village of Germantown. The village was previously assessed by Grota Appraisals, Mike Grota. Mike also owns Assessment Technologies, which is a software company, along with Andy Pelkey. Andy Pelkey owns a property in Germantown. So in 2012, we were just doing maintenance work for the village, so we're just looking at new construction, people that want their properties reviewed, and splits. He makes a request after the board review in 2012 for the data, the market drive data, the actual program data. He puts it into his system and runs a bunch of stuff and then files a complaint against Jim Danielson for his certification with the Department of Revenue. The Department of Revenue investigates. They look at what the everything that he asked questions of Jim and all that. They came back with a findings of fact in October 2013. Findings of fact had two issues on it. One was lowering an assessed value of a sale property in a non-revaluation year, and the second one was validating sales. Now, some of you are on the board of review, and you know that obviously we deal with market value as of January 1st if you have a recent sale of the property. So that's what we were basing our adjustments on. So we met with the DOR in January of 2014. And we had our attorney with us, and 95% of the conversation dealt with that, lowering an assessed value of a sale property in a non-revaluation year. They did discuss then validating sales. At the very end, they also said, oh, and you need to do agricultural classification. We need to look at ag land, okay? Not that there was an issue with it, but just that we need to look at it. Fast forward to January of 2015, we meet again with the DOR. The DOR says, we have some issues with your agricultural classification. We're like, okay, what are the issues? We're not going to show you. It's an active investigation. How am I supposed to correct issues that you have? First of all, they never told us previously that we've had any issues. This is the first time. We meet with them again in May of 2014 or 2015, just a few months back, and they say, because of these agricultural classification issues, which we have not seen, we're either going to revoke Jim's license, or we can do this 6-month voluntarily give up your license. And just to reiterate, the 6-month voluntarily give up your license is not in the law. There's nothing that allows them to do that. This is just something that they made up. The only thing that they're allowed to do, or they have the power to do, is revoke license. So when we went into that meeting, we went in with, Jim had done some investigation of other assessors for other communities in Jefferson County. He found 150 what he felt were classification issues, and the DOR didn't really care about that. They said, we're only investigating you. They don't audit assessors. They don't go in and look at what the assessors do. They only do it if there is a complaint. And obviously the original complaint that goes back to 2012, even though their findings of fact didn't include that issue. So as part of our discussion with the 6-month revocation, they said that Jim would be able to still do day-to-day operations. He just wouldn't be able to sign a roll book. Well, there wouldn't be any signing of a roll book between November and April. That's the time frame that we're talking about here. So part of that discussion then was, this letter that we still haven't seen or hasn't even been made up yet, would this be open to the public? And the DOR tells us, we're not going to go public with this. We have no reason to. This is a disciplinary matter between us and you. But would that be open to a public record request? Because we figured that Andy Pelkey, who initiated the original complaint, would probably do that. They came back and said, yes, that would be open for open records request. Jim then, first time he sees the letter that where would talk about the 6-month giving up his license, was on July 2nd, and the DOR wanted it signed and returned by July 3rd. So Jim, I was on vacation at the time, so Jim asked, this is a very important decision. Can we have at least a month request on this? And then that I was on vacation as well, and he wanted to discuss it with me. They said, nope, you can't have a month, but you have until next Tuesday. So it was either sign this letter or, or they were going to revoke. At this point in time, we still have been requesting to see what it is, the issue is with the agricultural classification. And they still, at this point in time, have not shown us what that is. So Jim, signs the letter, turns it in on Wednesday, and 5 days later, we get an email from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel saying that they have this and they're going to write a letter. So clearly, the DOR told us that they weren't going to go public with it, but then they did. So that's, and subsequently, we've requested a meeting with the DOR to clarify what this is going to happen during the 6 months and why they decided to go public with it. And we had the meeting, and they subsequently have canceled, and it's not been rescheduled yet. So, so as of right now, Jim's license, I guess, will be voluntarily given up in November, and it'll be through April. And we don't really know the issues that they have with our classification of agricultural land. Agricultural land is somewhat subjective. You might have, and I don't really know what the issues are, but you could have a case where a developer puts in alfalfa and requests for an agricultural, ag use. And you could look at it and say, well, it's a subdivision. Highest and best use of that is residential. You have it for sale. So I don't know if that's the issue or what the issues are, but agricultural land can be somewhat subjective, especially if you let it go fallow for a year or two to rejuvenate the soil. You're still supposed to keep that as ag use. You have CRP land. That's where they're getting paid not to crop it out, but yet per the manual that is ag use. Well, if you just look at the aerial or you go drive by it, you would see fallow land, and you would say, well, that's supposed to be the classification. But if you dig in farther, it could be CRP, and it might be under that type of program. We didn't have a chance to defend ourselves or any of the issues that they had, and maybe those were some of the cases. I don't know. But that's where we are at right now.
Okay.
So I'm available for any
Sure,
questions.
thanks. Any questions?
Well, you said you didn't have a chance to defend yourself. If you had not taken the voluntary surrender of the license, would you then have gone through a due process?
Well, yeah, the revocation process is, the first is that you go to the Secretary of Revenue. You have a meeting in front of them, like a court case. I kind of liken it to the Tom Brady deal. I mean, the DOR hands out the punishment, and then you're going right back to the DOR to try and get it back. We didn't feel that we would have had a very fair shake at that, I guess. I'd just be part of the process. Secretary of Revenue, I think, would defend their findings. Then from there, it goes into circuit court in the county that Jim lives in, which is Outagamie. So we would have had to go there. We probably figured that would have been at least a year, if not longer, process, and it would have been very expensive with the attorney fees. We just felt that, I think if we would have went that way, I think we would have had a good case. Because when they told us in January of 2014, the agricultural use, you're supposed to look at the growing season. So you'd be looking at the growing season in 2014. Well, that would go on to 2015 roll, but they looked at the 2014 rolls and for that issue, and that would have been the growing season of 2013, which they hadn't told us about that issue even at that point in time yet. So, there's timing issues in that I think that if we would have went, we probably could have won, but I think it was just, for us, it was easier just to do the 6 months and then go from there.
Other questions?
Man, there's a question. Steve.
Oh, yeah.
So, can you explain how the suspension of Jim's license affects your service to the community? Does that just mean he wouldn't be involved in the assessment process during that time?
Far as the DOR told us is that he can do day-to-day operations. So he can do that, but he just can't sign a roll book during that period of time. So that is what we're going on until they tell us differently. I'm the statutory assessor, so I still have my license, so there really isn't any effect on the village at all, as far as that goes,
So Steve, one question. So Lee, I'm gonna make sure I understand this, because we had this issue in Organize, remember? We had somebody who was saying that they had property within a subdivision, and they were trying to get ag use on it.
Correct.
And Eric remembers it, and
Yeah.
the village contested that, and we prevailed.
Right.
So you're saying that, you're thinking the DOR is saying that interpretation is wrong?
Well, the DOR's interpretation of anything that has a crop on it gets ag use. But now, obviously, there's the highest and best use
Well, that's
also
how-
in the
right.
manual, and that's where the
Right.
two things contradict themselves.
Interesting.
And plus, you have, mapping nowadays is a lot better than it was 5 years ago. So you can go online and you can measure and do a lot better job of that.
Yep.
So, so you have some of that issue going on as well.
Thank you.
I asked Amy Trupke about this situation and said, Amy, do you know anything about this?
Anyway, explain what Amy is to the board.
Amy Trupke is one of my partners, and she does property tax litigation on behalf of municipalities. She's represented the Village of Oregon.
In the Walgreens case. Okay.
Yeah, and so I know she works with assessors around the state quite a lot.
And Lee knows her, yeah.
So this is what she wrote, and I just want to see, does this sound like she's talking about the same situation you're describing? She says, "This is a tough situation. I am somewhat familiar with the allegations made against Jim. It is hard because Jim basically followed the law as set forth by case law, but contrary to what the Department of Revenue says the policy should be. Case law says that the best evidence of value is the sale of the subject property, regardless of whether the sale took place in a revaluation year or not. The DOR takes the position that changing the assessment for a property that's sold in a non-revaluation year violates uniformity. That is not the law that courts apply in litigation." Is her characterization of what this is about matching up with your understanding of what the...
Well, that was the like I said, the findings of fact when that came out in October 2013, and that was their main point and their main contention. And we talked to attorneys, all different attorneys, about this prior to us going there in January 2014, and the reason why we took our attorney with us to argue that point exactly is that the law is what is the value on January 1st of 2014, or whatever the year you're in, and the Markerian hierarchy and everything that goes along with it, the subject, sale property, and so yes, her characterization is correct. However, that is not the reason why Jim's license is being...
Why did they say they're suspending it then?
Because of the agricultural classification issue.
And you don't know what that even is?
We don't even know what that is. They have never showed it to us.
So they included that finding about the revaluation year issue. That wasn't the basis for what their action was?
Correct.
Okay, she doesn't say anything about the ag thing. Here's the last thing Amy said to me, and I just provide this to the board for your information. I didn't know this was even gonna come up tonight. And I got this in an email from Amy when I was asked about it in another situation. It says, "So I do not think that Jim technically did anything wrong legally. The DOR policy is impossible to follow if there's litigation. Then she says, I think the village needs to consider what your experience has been with Jim and decide whether to continue with Accurate. If you want to discuss this further, please do not hesitate to contact me. So that was Amy's take, but she was only aware or only talked about the issue that I mentioned. She didn't say anything about the ag value issue. I don't know if she knows anything about that.
Probably not. We haven't, I mean, this kind of came up real quick. All of a sudden, you know, in January, they came up and said they had an issue, and then in May, they said this is what we're gonna do. So it's been so quick for us. And like I said, they have not shown us what the issues are. To this day yet, we do not know what the issue is.
And you're not gonna know, right? Because you didn't proceed with the due process. You decided to voluntarily surrender the license in lieu of your day in court.
I guess. I mean, they did say, if you sign the 6 month, we'll show you the whatever issues they had right then and there. So.
And the ag issue, the way that the article is written, the ag issue was a part, but not entirely all of their concern with Jim. Is that right, or is that not right?
Well, I guess that's their interpretation. That's not what the meetings that we had with the DOR. I mean, the meetings that we had with the
Was
DOR.
strictly focused on the ag interpretation.
Exactly.
But doesn't it raise a concern, not knowing if you're doing it the right way?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
It's a guessing game.
Well, I'm just wondering, well, I won't speculate what's going on here, but I can sort of guess. Yeah.
Well, my last questions are, so right now the village has a contract with Accurate, I assume?
Yes.
And when does that run
It's-
through?
I think it ends this year, I think. Isn't it?
Goes through?
Yeah, it ends this
December?
year.
Yeah.
Yep.
And was there any expectation that would be reviewed to decide what you're doing next year?
Yep,
When
so the
would that-
board's given us direction, and we're working on it, we got this, and so we wanted to have Lee talk to the board, and then we're gonna bring it back to the board for discussion at an upcoming meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did Jim do much work down here?
No, he doesn't do anything down here.
Just at the beginning.
Not for this village.
At the beginning, he was a little involved, but not.
At the
much.
very beginning,
Way at the
yeah,
beginning,
yeah.
Other questions? Anything more from staff?
No, thank you.
So, nothing more we need to do tonight, right?
No, no.
Okay.
Good, thanks. That
Thank
was
you very
helpful.
much.
Thanks, Lee.
Okay, item 5, communication miscellaneous business. Item A, discussion possible action regarding delay the auditor requests for proposal until 2016.
The reason that I'm making this request is because of the impact fee situation that we have this year, the paying back or the refunding of impact fees. I've been working with it, I contacted the PSC, then I contacted the auditor to see how this should be recorded, and I was given 2 different answers, and the way that the auditor has me doing it is probably the more accurate way, so that's the way I'm doing it for the refunds, and then at the end of the year, we'll have to make an entry to reduce the impact fee balances on the balance sheet. So that's, since they've been involved with this year, that's why I was making a request to wait a year until we send out an RFP for auditors. 'Cause this is just, it's gonna be, once we get going, I mean, it's gonna be an ongoing thing until April of 2016. But once we get through this year, which is the bulk of it, I mean, next year should.
Question or questions for Lisa?
I have a question for Lisa, and I don't mean to jump ahead, but does the connection fee and impact fee report that's in the packet tonight, does that include any refunds at all?
No, that's all just this year's information.
That's just this year, so.
It's just, yeah, that's just the revenue that we've taken in this year and the number of building permits we've issued.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, so we have a motion and a second to delay the auditor RFP until 2016. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
See, the next time I ask you to hold that for.
Okay. That'll
next
come
meeting.
back at another
I need to talk to Joey about that.
Okay.
I need a chance for it when on the
Okay.
agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6 is unfinished business. There is none. Item 7, new business, discussion regarding review of connection fees, impact fees, and building permits. Any questions or comments here from anybody?
Building permits are ahead of last year, which is always a good thing.
Anything else? You want to summarize all that for us, Lisa? I'm kidding.
Sure, I have a one-page. It is what it is.
Are there any comments
There
you'd
you
like to
go,
make?
it's what it is.
Just, I mean, obviously, the huge spike for July is all of the building that's going out on the west side of town, with all the fourplexes going in and all those duplexes that are gonna be built. So there were a lot of building permits pulled. I don't know how much work has actually started out there yet, but it should be a good year for new construction.
Thank you. Anything else on this item? Anyone? Okay. Item B, discussion possible action regarding conflict of interest letter concerning employment agreement. This is with our Chief of Police candidate, Brian Ewell. And as he should, he has enlisted an attorney to look at the agreement. And they are with, is it
Excellent.
Ashley Brynelson, is that how you pronounce
It's,
it?
yeah, and actually, they are the firm, they're representing us in the Walgreens, so.
Yeah.
There's really not a conflict.
Yeah.
They're actually working for our insurance company who is representing us in the Walgreens matter.
We just need to sign a waiver because they're employed by the village and they would be representing him, and it's
Right.
just to make it all proper.
Legal, exactly, yep.
I'll move approval.
Thank you,
Second that.
thank you. Any questions or comments?
Matt, do you see any problem with this letter?
No.
Okay.
All in favor?
Pretty standard.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8, the village board may adjourn in a closed session during the meeting pursuant to Wisconsin statutes, section 19.85, 1C and E, to discuss establishing parameters for negotiating compensation for the police chief candidate and to discuss possible terms of an employment contract with the police chief candidate. The board will adjourn from closed session.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Carpenter? Yes. Poole?
Yes.
Staton?
Yes.
Grenier?
Yes.
Brethauer?
Yes.
Bollig?
Yes.
Boudreaux?
Yes.
Thank you. So we'll go to closed session.